Search your heart, and you will find a fire there, sometimes hidden under layers of justification and habit, sometimes blazing in full view, a fire you did not ask for, but one you have learned to excuse. You say it is righteous. You say it is necessary. You say it is just the way you are. But hear this clearly: anger has become one of the most tolerated sins in your life, one of the most defended strongholds of your soul. You guard it as though it were a virtue, and yet it corrodes everything it touches. You do not merely get angry, you nurture it, rehearse it, replay conversations in your mind, build entire arguments in your imagination long after the moment has passed. And all the while you wonder why there is no peace in your heart. You must understand something fundamental. Anger is not first a problem of circumstance, it is a problem of the heart. You can blame your upbringing, your stress, your workload, the people around you, but none of those things force anger out of you. They only reveal what is already there. When pressure comes, it does not create character, it exposes it. What comes out of you in moments of frustration is what has been residing within you all along. If you truly want to never get angry again, you must stop negotiating with the surface and start dealing with the root. You are far too quick to justify yourself. You say, anyone would be angry if they were treated the way I was treated. But that defense collapses under honest scrutiny. The question is not whether anger is understandable. The question is whether it is right. You have confused explanation with justification. Yes, your pain explains your anger, but it does not excuse it. Pain does not give you permission to sin. Being wronged does not grant you the right to become wrong yourself. And yet you cling to that excuse because it protects your pride. Pride is the hidden fuel of anger. You are angry because you believe you deserve better treatment, better respect, better recognition. When your expectations are violated, your pride rises up and demands payment. Anger is your way of collecting what you think you are owed. But look closely at that belief. Who told you that you deserve ease, honor, control, or comfort? Who convinced you that your will must always be done? You have quietly enthroned yourself, and anger erupts whenever your little kingdom is threatened. You must come to terms with this. As long as you believe you are at the center, anger will remain your constant companion. You cannot kill anger without crucifying pride. And pride does not die easily. It will argue, theologize, rationalize, and disguise itself as strength. But it must be confronted. You must see yourself honestly, stripped of self-flattery. You are not as patient as you think. You are not as loving as you imagine. And that realization is not meant to crush you, but to free you, because only truth can set you free. You say you want peace, but you still want control. You want calm circumstances more than you want a transformed heart. That is why your peace is fragile. It depends on traffic, tone of voice, the behavior of others. But true peace is not circumstantial, it is rooted in surrender. Until you relinquish your demand to be sovereign over every situation, anger will keep returning like a tyrant, reclaiming his throne. Consider how small things ignite you. A delay, a disagreement, a careless word. These are not great evils, yet they provoke great reactions. Why? Because anger is not proportional to the offense. It is proportional to your self-importance. The smaller the offense that enrages you, the clearer the diagnosis. Your heart has grown hypersensitive because it revolves around you. You have trained yourself to react instead of to reflect, to explode instead of to endure. You must relearn how to respond. Response requires thought, humility, restraint. Reaction requires none of those. Reaction is instinctive, animalistic, immediate. Response is deliberate and disciplined. If you want anger gone from your life, you must slow down your soul. You must learn the rare and forgotten discipline of silence. Silence before words. Silence before judgment. Silence before retaliation. Many of your greatest regrets were born in moments where you spoke too quickly and listened too little. You tell yourself that anger is honesty, that holding back is hypocrisy. That is a lie you have believed because it flatters your impulsiveness. Self-control is not dishonesty. It is maturity. Just because a thought enters your mind does not mean it deserves to exit through your mouth. Wisdom knows the difference. Love knows the difference. And until you learn that difference, your anger will keep wounding those around you and hardening you from within. Look at the trail anger leaves behind you. Relationships strained. Trust eroded. Words you wish you could retrieve. Apologies you keep repeating, but never seem to mean because the pattern never changes. You are not feared because you are strong. You are feared because you are unpredictable. And that should grieve you. Anger does not make you formidable. It makes you unsafe. You must also understand that anger lies to you about power. In the moment, it feels like strength. It feels like taking control. But step back and see the truth. Anger controls you. It dictates your tone, your posture, your decisions. It hijacks your reason and enslaves your will. You think you are wielding it, but you are being wielded by it. A man or woman ruled by anger is not free. They are in bondage. If you want freedom, you must become ruthless with yourself. Not with others, with yourself. You must stop excusing what you would condemn in someone else. You must stop spiritualizing what is plainly selfish. You must stop calling your temper passion and your harshness honesty. Words matter because they shape how you see yourself. As long as you rename sin, you will never repent of it. Repentance is not feeling sorry after the damage is done. Repentance is a decisive turning. It is a war declared against the old patterns. It is a willingness to be corrected, confronted, and changed. It is not passive. It does not wait for anger to appear and then apologize later. It plans ahead. It builds new habits. It prepares the heart before the storm comes. You must train your mind. Anger thrives in unexamined thoughts. You assume motives. You exaggerate offenses. You rehearse worst-case scenarios. And all of it happens so quickly that you mistake it for reality. But you can interrupt that process. You can challenge your assumptions. You can ask yourself hard questions. Is this really as serious as I am making it? Am I reacting to facts or to my interpretation of them? Am I seeking understanding or victory? Humility changes everything. A humble heart is not easily offended because it does not demand constant affirmation. It is secure enough to overlook an insult, patient enough to endure inconvenience, strong enough to absorb wrong without retaliating. Humility does not mean weakness, it means clarity. It sees itself accurately and therefore does not need to defend an inflated image. You must also learn to forgive, not as a vague idea, but as a practiced discipline. Forgiveness is not denial of injustice. It is the refusal to become its servant. When you hold on to anger, you bind yourself to the very thing that hurt you. You carry it, revisit it, and allow it to shape you. Forgiveness cuts the chain. It says, "This will not define me. This will not rule me." But forgiveness is costly. It feels like loss. It feels like surrender. And that is why pride resists it so fiercely. Pride wants repayment. Pride wants acknowledgement. Pride wants the other person to suffer. But ask yourself honestly, how long will you keep paying for someone else's wrong with your own peace? How long will you let yesterday's offense poison today's joy? You also need to recognize how anger distorts your perception of others. It reduces complex human beings into caricatures. It strips them of context, struggle, and humanity. It forgets your own failures while magnifying theirs. Anger is selective in its memory. It remembers offenses vividly and mercy dimly. If you want to overcome anger, you must learn to see people as more than the moment they disappointed you. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust. It believes that not everything must be resolved immediately. It allows time for clarity, growth, and change. Impatience is simply unbelief dressed in urgency. It says, "If I do not act now, everything will fall apart." That is rarely true. And even when action is needed, anger is almost never the right fuel for it. You must replace anger with something stronger, not something softer. Meekness is strength under control. It is power restrained by wisdom. It does not erupt, it endures. It does not shout, it stands firm. Meekness can confront without cruelty, correct without contempt, and lead without domination. It is the opposite of the brittle strength anger offers. Discipline your body as well as your mind. Fatigue, hunger, and constant overstimulation weaken your resistance. You are more irritable because you are depleted. Do not pretend spirituality exempts you from human limitations. Rest matters. Quiet matters. Solitude matters. When your life is a constant noise of demands and distractions, anger finds easy entry. You must also be honest about what you love. Anger reveals misplaced loves. You rage when what you treasure is threatened. If your identity is bound up in being right, you will be angry when corrected. If your comfort is supreme, you will be angry when inconvenienced. If your reputation is everything, you will be angry when misunderstood. Examine your loves, and you will find the source of your anger. This change will not happen overnight. Patterns formed over years do not dissolve in a moment. But do not use that as an excuse for inaction. Start with vigilance. Watch your words. Watch your tone. Watch the early signs. Anger announces itself before it explodes. Tightened jaw, accelerated thoughts, shortened patience. When you see it approaching, you are not powerless. You can choose a different path. There will be moments when you fail. Do not let failure become permission. Let it become instruction. Learn from it. Trace it back. What were you believing in that moment? What were you protecting? What were you demanding? Growth comes from honest reflection, not from self-condemnation or self-defense. Never getting angry again does not mean never feeling the initial spark of frustration. It means never letting that spark become a fire. It means mastering your inner world so that your outer world is not ruled by chaos. It means becoming the kind of person whose presence brings calm rather than tension, clarity rather than fear, steadiness rather than volatility. Imagine a life where you are no longer controlled by outbursts, where your words are measured, your reactions thoughtful, your spirit settled. Imagine relationships no longer walking on eggshells around you. Imagine the quiet confidence of self-control, the deep rest of a heart at peace. This is not fantasy. It is the fruit of humility, discipline, and truth embraced daily, moment by moment, choice by choice. As you lay down your right to be offended and take up the far greater strength of self-command. Anger is far more than an emotional reaction to external pressure. It is a revelation of what rules the inner life. People spend years trying to manage anger by changing their environment, removing irritations, avoiding difficult people, or arranging life so that fewer things go wrong. But anger does not originate in traffic, delays, disrespect, or disappointment. Those things merely pull back the curtain. They expose what already lives in the heart. When circumstances squeeze you, what comes out is not accidental. It is stored there. Anger is not imported from the outside. It rises from within, and at its core is pride. Pride is the quiet assumption that you deserve better than what you are receiving. It is the belief that your comfort, your plans, your opinions, and your sense of order carry special weight. Pride does not always announce itself loudly. Often it hides behind respectable language. It calls itself self-respect, boundaries, strength, or honesty. But when that pride is challenged, anger rushes in as its defender. Anger exists to protect the ego. It erupts when the heart feels its importance has been threatened, ignored, or diminished. This is why two people can face the same situation and respond entirely differently. One remains calm, thoughtful, and restrained, while the other explodes. The difference is not the circumstance, it is the heart. One heart is anchored in humility, the other in entitlement. One does not assume it must be honored at every moment. The other quietly insists upon it. Anger is simply the language pride speaks when it feels violated. You often say, if you were treated the way I was treated, you would be angry too. But that statement reveals more than it defends. It assumes that being wronged automatically justifies rage. It equates offense with permission. But being sinned against does not give you the right to sin in response. Pain explains anger, but it does not excuse it. Pride uses pain as a courtroom witness, not to seek truth, but to secure a verdict in its favor. At the center of anger is the demand to be in control. You want outcomes to align with your expectations, people to behave according to your standards, and life to move at your pace. When that does not happen, anger rises as a protest. It says, "This should not be happening to me." That statement alone exposes the root. Who decided what should or should not happen to you? Who declared that inconvenience, misunderstanding, or hardship were beneath you? Pride assumes authority over reality. and anger flares when reality refuses to submit. You may believe your anger is righteous, especially when it appears tied to injustice or moral failure in others. But even then, pride can hide behind moral language. You are less angry about what is wrong and more angry about the fact that you have been affected by it. True concern for righteousness is marked by grief, patience, and clarity, not volatility and contempt. When anger turns harsh, sarcastic, or demeaning, it has already shifted from moral concern to personal offense. Pride also magnifies anger by distorting perception. It exaggerates offenses and minimizes personal fault. It remembers insults vividly while forgetting grace quickly. It assigns motives without evidence and builds narratives that justify resentment. Once pride has framed the story, anger feels reasonable, even necessary. You no longer see the other person as complex or flawed like yourself. You see them as the problem. And as long as someone else is the problem, you are relieved of responsibility to change. Anger rooted in pride is deeply self-protective. It resists correction. It bristles at confrontation. It explains itself endlessly but rarely listens. When challenged, it becomes defensive rather than reflective. That defensiveness is not strength, it is fear. Pride is terrified of exposure. It cannot tolerate the thought that it may be wrong, weak, or in need of growth. So anger stands guard, pushing back anyone who threatens the self-image. This is why anger often feels justified in the moment, but shameful afterward. In the heat of it, pride is being served, and that feels empowering. Later, when the moment passes and clarity returns, you see the damage. Words spoken cannot be retrieved. Trust eroded cannot be instantly rebuilt. But pride hates reflection, so instead of learning, it rushes to excuses. That's just how I am. I was under a lot of stress. They pushed me too far. And the cycle continues. If anger were truly a circumstance problem, changing circumstances would solve it. But you know from experience that it does not. You fix one issue, and anger finds another. You move to a new season of life, and it follows you. You promise yourself you will do better next time, and yet next time arrives with the same result. That persistence proves the source is internal. Until the heart changes, the pattern remains. Pride also makes anger feel urgent. It insists that every offense must be addressed immediately, every slight corrected, every disagreement won. It cannot wait. It cannot endure being misunderstood. Silence feels like weakness. Restraint feels like loss. But this urgency is an illusion. It is the panic of an ego afraid of losing ground. In reality, very few things require instant emotional reaction. Most conflicts benefit from time, thought, and humility. A humble heart does not interpret every inconvenience as an insult. It does not assume malicious intent. It does not believe the world revolves around its comfort. Humility creates emotional space. It allows you to pause, to ask questions, to consider perspectives beyond your own. Where pride narrows the soul, humility expands it. And as humility grows, anger loses its foothold. Anger rooted in pride also struggles deeply with forgiveness. Forgiveness feels like surrender, and pride despises surrender. It wants compensation. It wants acknowledgement. It wants the other person to feel the weight of what they have done. But refusing to forgive does not punish the offender nearly as much as it imprisons the offended. Anger becomes a chronic condition, not because the offense continues, but because pride refuses to release it. The heart must be retrained to value humility over vindication. This is not passive resignation. It is active submission of the ego. It is choosing to let go of the need to be right, honored, and prioritized in every moment. It is recognizing that your worth is not threatened by inconvenience, disagreement, or disrespect. When that truth settles into the heart, anger begins to lose its authority. You cannot outgrow anger by sheer willpower alone. You must replace the beliefs that feed it. You must challenge the assumption that your expectations are law. You must confront the quiet narrative that says you deserve ease, control, and constant affirmation. As long as that narrative remains unchallenged, anger will always have a reason to exist. Growth begins when you stop asking, how can I make people stop provoking me? And start asking, why does this provoke me so deeply? That question shifts responsibility back where it belongs. It invites honesty instead of blame. It opens the door to transformation rather than endless reaction. Anger loses strength when pride is exposed. When you admit that much of your frustration comes not from moral outrage, but from wounded self-importance, the illusion begins to crack. That admission is painful, but it is also freeing. It means change is possible. It means peace is not dependent on perfect circumstances, but on a reordered heart. As pride diminishes, patience grows. As patience grows, clarity replaces chaos. You begin to see that many things you once fought over were never worth the cost. You begin to realize how often anger promised power, but delivered regret. You begin to prefer restraint over explosion, understanding over domination, peace over proving a point. The heart that no longer needs to be at the center is not easily angered. It is settled. It is secure. It is free. And that freedom does not come from controlling the world, but from surrendering the throne within, laying down the demand to be treated as supreme, and learning to live without the constant need to defend yourself, justify yourself, or exalt yourself in moments when life refuses to bend to your will, and when people fail to meet your expectations, and when discomfort reveals that the deepest battle was never outside of you, but always within the quiet, proud assumptions of the heart